Deloitte's The Insight Track is developed to prep you and your organization for the ever-changing future. It provides insights into the agility you'll need to do sustainable business. This podcast series dives into the 6 agility domains necessary for Belgian companies to stand up to future crises. Please welcome our Inside Track host, Gudela Wijnands, Director of Deloitte Belgium.
At Deloitte, we firmly believe that change is the only constant and that an organization needs to be agile if you want to stay ahead of new developments and the competition. Or at least you should be prepared to quickly respond to a new situation. In the past, we saw that CEOs with a very good gut feeling were the most successful ones. But today, you need more. Those who have access to real-time data and predictive data are the fastest to win in the market. And that is why I invited today Frédéric and Julien. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
On this Inside Track by Deloitte on data analytics. Can you please explain our listeners why you are here and who you are?
Sure. I'm Frédéric van Holle. I'm a partner within Deloitte Belgium, and I'm responsible for the SAP Data and Analytics team. So therefore, I'm very excited to be here together with you today in order to share a couple of ideas on data analytics.
Thank you. Julien?
Good morning, Gudela. My name is Julien Moret, and as a director in the SAP Data Analytics offering, I focus on helping companies become data-driven.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen, for being here. So in today's session of the Inside Track by Deloitte, we will be talking about data and analytics. And it might seem a silly question because everybody today seems to talk about data. But why is data so important?
Yeah. I like to quote our global CEO, Jan Wals, who say, data is the heartbeat of a digital economy, and the quality of your data has a major impact on expected business results. So I strongly believe that business decisions must rely on fact and not on gut feelings. And for this, you need timely and accurate data that can support the next level of automation, decision-making and forecasting. And the Belgian Agility Report showed that 46% of Belgian companies already make strategic decisions based on real-time data. However, many companies still struggle to turn data into insights and intelligence.
Okay, so I suppose this is about the first part of the title of this session, the data. What about data first?
Data first is rather a mindset than a methodology or a framework. And the key message here is that it's never too early to start working on data. And it's really important to identify the needs, discussing with the business to identify their need, because if you don't do it, it will always lead to one of the following negative impacts. So it's either leading to additional efforts, because the later you start working on data, the more resource intensive it gets.
Okay.
Or it leads to additional risks. And one of the most common is to not have the right data quality by the time you need to go live, and then you need to postpone your go live. And the third negative impact of not handling data early on is that it can reduce the quality of your project and not making you to reach the business objectives.
Okay, so I understand you well, is that you first need to understand the needs of the company, and then you also need to know where to find the data. But Frédéric, what about analytics first then?
Well, Gudela, when talking about analytics first, I always remember one of my first projects as a consultant. I was an SAP MMNSD consultant back in the days, 20 years ago, can you imagine? And basically we did a great project. We were well prepared. Everything you wanted to have in a project was there. But 2 weeks before the go live, there was a crisis in the project, and I still remember that moment very well, because the CFO said, "Yeah, guys, if I don't have this specific report, we can't go live." It's as simple as that. So you can imagine we had quite an issue. Now, the issue was even bigger because it seemed that we didn't build the data models in order to easily extract that report from the data. So that goes back, of course, to what Julien already said, that having also the data right at the start of the journey is extremely important. And what we say is that companies having the analytics first in their mindset, they will allow their business leaders basically to take better informed decisions. And in that respect, I always like to make the distinction between hindsight and foresight. And what I mean by that is that with hindsight, you look back, you look in the mirror on, okay, what happened in my business? What is the state of my business based on what happened up till 1 second ago, if it's real time?
Historical data.
Indeed, which is great, of course, if you have already that data available. Now, what we are typically doing is adding a layer on top of that with the so-called foresights, which means that we are applying, for instance, artificial intelligence or machine learning in order to be able also to say something about the future state of the business. And to be very clear, we are not pretending that we will replace all the decision makers in a company by an algorithm or by a report, but we are convinced that basically by doing so, we will enrich the decisions that these business leaders are taking. And we can clearly see that at the moment companies are introducing these foresights, that they gain a competitive advantage compared to their competitors in the market. And one example I'd like to share here, Goedele, is for a certain client, we were working in the warehouse operations, and we got the question like, okay, we want to have a better predictability on the orders that will be late when they have to be shipped with the truck. So we analyzed it. There were a lot of parameters influencing basically the fact that an order was late. And to give you just that idea, by implementing that report, we were able to reduce the numbers of orders that were late by 60%. So I think that's quite an amazing result.
I do understand right now how this all fits in like an agile business transformation process and what the value could be for an organization using this approach. But what if a company has already passed this transformation or is simply not ready for transformation? Do they also benefit then from an analytics first approach or not?
I can start. Well, the short answer is yes. So independently, if you're looking at a transformation, if you're in the middle of one or looking to get the benefits of a recent transformation, looking at your data and making sure you have the right people to manage it and the right alignment with the business is always beneficial. And a concrete example is with a client recently, due to geopolitical situation, they decided to postpone their transformation with S4HANA as a digital core. But we already had some data first sessions, and during these sessions we identified activities around data archiving, cleansing and governance that they could start working on directly. And while doing this, preparing on these activities even before they started the transformation led to benefits in the transformation later on.
Okay. And what kind of benefits are you talking about?
So concrete benefits like data archiving helps to reduce your system capacity. So that's a lower TCO, total cost of ownership. Having cleans data helps you to make better decision, and having the right governance is speeding up decision making as you have the right stakeholders identified to make decisions.
Okay.
And if I may add to that, of course, having the data available and accurate data available is extremely important. Of course, And then it comes also to the reporting layer that we add to that. And to come back on your question, Gule, it definitely also is very useful to consider this analytics first approach when you are not in a digital transformation, because what we can oftentimes see with clients is that there is, I would say, a continuous stream of requests for new reports. People want to explore data, they want to have new insights, etc. But at the same time, we see that if we make the analysis on the percentage of reports that is actually used, that turns out to be very low in some cases. So what we are doing is helping the clients by challenging them and asking the question like, okay, you're asking us to build a new report, but what is now really the decision that you would like to take with this new report and that you are not able to take with the reports that you have already available today? And I can tell you that we are really saving a lot of time and money from our clients by just challenging that and potentially then not building the report instead of just building a report that is never used. Now, I referred already to the fact that people like to explore. So what we typically do is to offer them a kind of a sandbox environment, of course, and separate from the productive environment for obvious reasons, where they can play around. And referring back to the foresights that I just mentioned, this also allows like data scientists in a company to explore, to find relationships between data elements that maybe they were looking for but didn't find, or even that they didn't suspect to be there. And a nice example I can share in that respect is a client in the medtech industry, and they were looking like, we want to improve our stock management for a certain device. So in other words, we also want to improve, I would say, the predictability of the sales of that device. And as a matter of fact, the data scientists used the sandbox environment that we set up, and by even combining the data elements from outside the databases of the company with some number of diseases, etc., from open data sources, they were able to really find some correlations between these data and the sales of their device. And as such, we're able to then indeed answer the ask from the business to have a better predictability on the sales of that device.
That sounds very nice, to be honest.
It
but
is very nice.
I assume there are also some pitfalls. I mean, doesn't it take ages if you need to consult a business? And we all know companies who really started data projects, but at the end never achieved the desired results. So what about that?
Well, obviously there are pitfalls. I think the first one that comes to my mind is to decouple your data or data analytics strategy from your business strategy. So the data strategy should always be there to support the business strategy and not be a data strategy for a data strategy. I don't know, Frédéric, if you see.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to data strategy, I would also like to add the pitfall that some companies get a bit stuck with their tools, because it's of course important to have a nice visualization tool in order to have nice reporting, etc. But we shouldn't just add tools and more tools and more tools for the sake of adding tools. Again, it's always the same question I'm asking to all of my clients. What is the decision that you will be able to take and that you are not able to take today? And to complement on what Julien was saying, I think there it is also very important to look at the data analytics architecture, and the architecture layer is very important in order to have really the foundation of where you will build this data and analytics strategy on. I think next to that, when having then the tools, etc., we see that some of the companies have a kind of what we call analysis paralysis, just by analyzing whatever and not focusing on the KPIs that really are the key instruments to measure the performance of a company, also with the foresight to also have scenarios on the future state of the business. So I think that's also a pitfall, it just analyzing for the sake of analyzing. And third, I think what we sometimes can see is that for analytics, the IT department is seen as a bit a roadblock. It's all very difficult to get this new report, etc. I see you smiling, so I think you also recognize that. And basically, therefore, in order to mitigate that pitfall, what we would typically do is implementing a self-service BI strategy, which means that, of course, the data is governed in a centralized way, or the data is not just out there and do whatever you want with the data. But by adding the self-service layer, we get the ability for end users to make changes to the reports, to add a column, etc. And oftentimes this is very well received, because then they are not dependent for very small or minor changes to go to their IT department. But maybe there's other pitfalls that you can think about as well, Julien.
Last one maybe is to have data initiatives that only serve one angle of your business. By that I mean that siloed and not covering the different needs of the people in the company. So typically a data strategy needs to cover both the operation angle, where it's all about improving the process efficiency, but you also need to serve the reporting needs, like Frédéric explained, with better data insights. And the third important one, especially these days, is the legal aspect. So all data initiative related to data protection and data compliance. So it's one of the pitfalls is to always focus, for example, on data to support better reporting, but not look at these other angles.
So, gentlemen, these all sound very, very nice, but also that there's a lot of work to be done if you want to have this kind of environment. So I assume also a lot of companies are hesitant to move into that direction. But what is the risk if they don't move to a data analytics first approach?
Well, I think that, to put it very simple, they are losing competitive advantage compared to the companies that are doing it. Okay. Because if you have the data analytics first approach, you will have a better insights into your market, into your customers, into your stock, into your warehouse operations, into your supply chain in general. And companies that don't have this will have a difficult time in order to stay ahead of competition. And to be honest, we could see that during the COVID crisis, where we really saw the difference between companies that were managed and steered based on gut feeling and companies that had a more data-driven approach. And of course, gut feeling is great, but if you have an unprecedented crisis like COVID, it doesn't tell you so much, to be honest. Whereas it was unprecedented, so we will not claim here that with analytics first you were perfectly able to predict the future. That would be too nice. But still, we helped companies that had a data-driven approach by building scenarios, basically, based on that data-driven approach, by adding the foresights to different scenarios, to different parameters that could influence the future state of the business. And I can tell you that, well, these companies navigated in a better way through that crisis than the others.
So, Frédéric, what I hear here is that companies who are indeed following that data analytics first approach are really more agile in comparison with others. And also that it can really make a difference for a company between steering your company in an ever-changing environment, because other crises will come, and just following the waves. So, right? Or
that's absolutely right. And maybe to come back to one of the concerns that you raised, like, but if a company wants to do that, maybe that's a huge effort, etc. I think with the examples we shared, we can also really see that it's a matter of starting small And oftentimes by seeing the benefits of just one example where we add the foresights, like the example with the warehouse operations or with the prediction of the sales data that we shared, I think there the appetite is really there also from the board in order to make the necessary investments, etc. And there we can really see that it doesn't have to take months or even years before you can get the right steps, but by starting small, you can really scale up and have then the full benefits of this data analytics first approach. Absolutely.
For me, it was clear, yeah?
Yeah, no, I think just to add, maybe it's really, I think the key message is to start early the journey and embark the right stakeholders in it directly, and then starting small with achieving measurable impact. And then, I believe that's the way to go.
For me, it's clear that this is the right approach, I think. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us at the Inside Track by Deloitte on data and analytics.
Thanks for having us, Goedele.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today on this Inside Track by Deloitte on data and analytics first. I hope you liked it as much as I did, and I look forward to meeting you all on our next episode. Bye-bye.
You're now one step further on the inside track to agility. Want to know more about the 6 domains that will strengthen your organisation? The Belgian Readiness Report is freely available. Be sure to tune in to the next episode of the Inside Track to keep broadening your way forward.